The Los Angeles Dodgers are up 1-0 in the NLCS. The Los Angeles Dodgers are on the brink of big-time history in the postseason. Jack Flaherty balled out. Let's talk about it. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers, and you can become an everydayer by listening and watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and get notified when episodes are ready or when we're going live like we are here on Sunday night on YouTube. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. My name is Vince Samperio. That's Jeff Snyder. We are both lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team for a decade now. We've been doing this podcast for 6 seasons now, and we've talked a lot of Dodgers. We've seen a lot of Dodgers. We've been around the Dodgers. Playoff Dodgers. I don't know if this one feels any different yet, but it definitely, of all the games that the Dodgers have had in the postseason, in this 12-year stretch for sure, this might have been one of the most stress-free ones. I don't know about the most because they put up, 11 runs in that one game against the Braves that one time? But
yeah, the 11-run first inning against the Braves in Game 3 of the 2020 NLCS was probably still the most stress-free. But even then, that was only to claw back to within, they were down 2-0 when that game started. So, that game itself was stress-free, but the overall, this is a great way to start a series when you're already coming in off the high of beating the Padres, and then to win the first game of the series like this, it is very relaxed. And of course, now we've got a short turnaround, like we'll talk about later. So we're going to get stressed really quickly again, I'm sure. But yeah, this was starting off in the first inning of the very first inning of the series and taking a lead was a really nice way to kick off the series.
Yeah, I think if there was one advantage for the Mets to have in terms of games this series, not like pitching wise or anything like that, but just in general, this would be the game. The Dodgers spent so much emotion beating the Padres and, had to obviously use arms. The day off kind of helped in the terms of the arms department, but it was one of those where if you could see the Dodgers losing one of these games at home, it might have been game one, just for the simple fact of, the Mets had a couple of days off. The Mets are playing. I don't want to say the Mets are playing with house money at this point, but it feels like it a little bit for them. They don't have the pressure that the Dodgers have. And obviously a lot of that pressure was relieved by getting to the NLCS for the Dodgers. But it was one of those where you hope the Dodgers brought it. In years past, some years past, you thought for sure the Dodgers were going to bring it. And maybe the last couple of years past, you weren't sure if the Dodgers were going to bring it. The Dodgers seem to be ready to go, playing very well this postseason now. But I don't know if we could have expected another shutout. I don't know if we could have expected 9 runs. And especially since the Dodgers got it done early, I think that helped out. We've talked about playing from behind a lot, and the Dodgers didn't do that in those last 2 games against the Padres. They didn't do that at all today. And I got to imagine Jack Flaherty feels a lot better getting out there on the mound when he's up 2-0, 3-0, then 5-0. And I don't want to say that's the direct correlation, but it does show that maybe it is.
Yeah, I was. The 3 straight shutouts is just crazy. You show me a Dodger fan who predicted 3 straight shutouts for the Dodgers in the postseason with this pitching staff, the way it's been banged up and everything. I'll show you either a liar or somebody who got his hands on Gray Sports Almanac from Back to the Future, because there's just it's just unfathomable. We even had an insider who I was texting back and forth with the other day about the record, for the longest postseason scoreless stretch and everything, and 3 straight shutouts and everything. And neither of us ever even really brought up a realistic possibility of another one. It was more like, oh, let's maybe they can get this stretch up to 28, 29 innings, like it just like, obviously it crosses your mind, but I don't think either of us is willing to realistically say, oh, maybe they could do a third straight shutout. And although I do have to note, they say that the Dodgers have tied the major league record with 33 consecutive scoreless innings. And because I am pedantic, I have to point out that is within a single postseason, because the Orioles, after they had 33 straight scoreless innings against the Dodgers in 1966, their next postseason game was in 1969, and they started that one off with 6 scoreless innings. So Dodgers just going to need to get that 4th straight shutout to make sure there's no doubt that they have the record. And it would be the first team. They're the 3rd team with 3 straight shutouts. They'd be the first one with 4 straight shutouts.
Yeah, that 4th straight shutout, if it does come, would have to be via bullpen game. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's talk about Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty has been a guy who, depending how you feel as a Dodger fan, at least for me, it feels, I don't want to say underwhelming, but maybe a little bit, man, like I know there's more in there. I know there's some in there that he can unlock and really give us one of those, us, I don't want to say vintage Jack Flaherty start, but a start that we can be like, oh yeah, that's Jack Flaherty. And this was the one, 6 strikeouts, 7 innings, scoreless innings, 2 hits, 2 walks, a little bit of help from Kike and a really nice play deking out Jesse Winker, and some bad running by Jesse Winker realistically. But to set the tone, Dave Roberts ahead of the game said that if Flaherty goes deep, Bingham 2 could be a bullpen game. Flaherty gave him 7. They only had to use Daniel Hudson and Ben Casparius. And, hometown kid, like all that stuff had been building up, and he didn't quite have it in the DS. He didn't quite have it against the Padres when they were looking to clinch. And you were kind of waiting for that one start to like really nail that point home. And this is the one. And one so far. There might be more.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think he really matches up better against the not Padres than he does against the Padres, because they don't chase, and he gets a lot of swing and miss, and that's a big part of his game. And with the Padres not swinging and missing, I think it takes him out of his game. So it's not like the Mets are a huge swing and miss team, but obviously more than Padres, because all 29 other teams are more of a swing and miss team than the Padres. And so this was exactly what I was hoping for. And honestly, it's what I'm hoping for from Yamamoto too, because Yamamoto, like obviously he and Flaherty are different types of pitchers, but everything I just said about Flaherty is kind of the same for Yamamoto, that he gets swing and miss and is maybe going to struggle sometimes against teams that don't swing and miss. And so I'm excited for game 4 when Yamamoto gets to go. This was awesome to see. And this didn't feel like a fluke. Like I obviously wouldn't predict 7 scoreless innings every time Flaherty pitches against the Mets, but it didn't feel fluky to me. It felt like this is a really good pitcher making good pitches, getting a little bit of good luck, a little bit of help from his defense, and feeling kind of relaxed because the offense gave him a big lead. And so he could just kind of think, and he said after the game, he wasn't thinking about saving the bullpen so they could do a bullpen game tomorrow. He was just focused on now, but he did go into the game knowing my job today is to get deep into this game. And that's a lot easier to do when the offense gives you a lead like they did, because then he can just say, I don't care if I get strikeouts. He got 6 strikeouts in 7 innings. Not a huge number for him, but he got some quick outs when he needed it. Get through 7 innings on 98 pitches is all the Dodgers could have asked for in this game.
Yeah, ideal. If, like you said, all you could ask for. And then you get to see a couple guys out, probably one that'll pitch tomorrow in Hudson, maybe, depending how they map it out. But, Ben Casparius, I put out the thing on Twitter, like, and Ben Casparius is wild his dreams. Like, do you think he even thought he'd be pitching in an NLCS game, back in March now? I got to imagine, like, no. Like, even your wildest dream, like, oh, yeah, like, everything goes right. It's still hard to believe that he might have thought that.
He might have gotten to the point of maybe I'll make my major league debut this year. Yeah. Like he didn't get any farther than that for sure. And so, yeah, the pitching in the NLCS, even in a blowout game, I mean, that's why you're on the roster. We need you and Brett Honeywell exist to pitch in games like this. And, I was a little surprised they didn't bring him in when it was 6-0, but once they stretched it to 9-0, then yeah, Casparius is a no-brainer there. And it leaves the Dodgers set up really, really well for a bullpen game.
Yeah, the reason that Casparius got to throw that 9th inning was because the Dodgers put up 9 runs, and the Dodger offense got it going in a few different ways. One of those ways was not a home run, so we'll get into all that. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. If you're taking that dream vacation or you want to save up for some Dodgers postseason tickets, Ibotta can get you cash back on all your purchases so you can spend more time making those memories and less time dreaming about them. Ibotta is a free app that you can earn cash back every time you shop, earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip or a ticket to a game in the postseason. You never know. Whatever you want, Ibotta can help you earn that. You can save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. It's time you joined the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time they shop. And right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 for just trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. So go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your daily listen. At this point, we can't say your first listen because sometimes we're on in the evening once the Dodger games have ended. So your daily listen, and once we get back to the offseason, maybe your first listen, but it might still be your last. Either way, if you're listening, we appreciate you. If you want to listen more, all you have to do is just listen more. And you'll become an everydayer. We'll appreciate you there. And remember, you can subscribe wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. So you know when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube like we are here right now. And you can go beyond the podcast, come on Locked On Dodgers Insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us with any news, thoughts, rumors, etc., depending on the time of year. So make sure to go check that out. And let's talk about the Dodger offense, Jeff. It was, 9 runs is obviously fun. The 9 runs coming with no home runs. Home runs are more fun, but when you score 9 runs and you get to dispel the narrative that the Dodgers can't score without the home run, it's a little bit fun in that regard. And it just came from so many different places. Mookie had a big hit toward the end of the game. Shohei and patience got him through the earlier part of the game. And we even saw a little bit of small ball, which we'll get into. But wherever you want to start, we're here, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, the guys they needed to come through came through. Shohei was on base 3 times, scored 2 runs, drove in 1, drove in 2, but didn't get a credit for an RBI on one of them. Mookie, scored a run, on base twice, 3 RBIs. Freeman on base 3 times, a run and an RBI. And then Muncy. And Muncy had the big hit there early in the game when, after Will Smith had hit what looked like maybe should have been a sac fly, and maybe Dino Ebel was overly cautious on not sending Mookie. It's tough to tell with Tyrone Taylor out there. He's got a really good arm. It had potential to be very frustrating. And instead, Muncy came through with 2 outs and got a huge hit that, we've had people in the chat section on this podcast over and over calling for Muncy to be benched. And this was, and he didn't have a great game. That was his only hit, his only time on base. But when your only hit is a 2-run single and your pitchers don't allow any runs, we'll take it. Game-winning RBI on the back of the baseball card went to Max Muncy today. He's the one who got the scoring started. Kike Hernandez had 2 hits, scored both times. Just, it wasn't everybody getting involved, but it was plenty of people getting involved. And, 9 hits, 7 walks, so 16 times on base. Just a 1 extra base hit. Mookie's 3-run double. Ohtani hit one off the wall that was almost a home run, but only gets credit for a single on it. They said he advanced to second on the same error that scored Edman. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to complain very much at all about getting on base 16 times and scoring 9 runs in a postseason game.
Yeah, especially considering what we've seen from the Dodger offense in the past and what, usually haunts my nightmares when I think about Dodgers postseason. But it was a great outing, a great showing. For the Mets to go with Senga, who I don't even think they knew how much they were going to get from him. And, he kind of got away with a little bit. He gave up a home run in his last start against Phillies in the last round, but then went to 2 innings, had a few strikeouts, but we didn't know what to expect. But for them to, kind of have everything set up and go that way was for them what they decided to do. I'm glad the Dodgers made them pay, got into their bullpen, got to Peterson, and got to the last guy. I don't even remember who was pitching at that point. Yeah, but yeah, it was great and interesting because we talk a lot about bunts when there's situations where people want bunts or where the Dodgers try bunt, it doesn't work out, and we are suicide squeeze, safety squeeze. As if a bunt brings home a run directly, we are fans of that. These two, I guess, interesting because they didn't lead obviously directly to a run, but they did lead to a run the next hitter, and it was one of those where you're setting up a better hitter in a better situation with the runner in scoring position. And honestly, at that point, being up 2-0, having trust in your guys, the first time they did it, and Tommy Edman, who hasn't really been hitting anyways, made a lot of sense. The next time they did it was Gavin Lux setting it up for Tommy Edman, and then he does come through, but it was Tommy Edman from the right side, which is a lot better hitter than Tommy Edman from the left side. So I don't know. I mean, obviously it worked out, so I'm fine with it. I did think bunting the first time when Senga was all over the place was, maybe they could have let him throw a couple pitches, but hey, if you're going to bunt, you want to get it down, you want Shohei to bat, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and there is, even with Edman, who runs well, there's always the risk of a double play, which wouldn't have ended the inning, but it would have taken the runner off base in that situation. So one thing I realized about myself that I probably knew on some level, but I'd never kind of put it in these terms, is that I am quite a bit more okay with sack bunts in the postseason just because scoring is more at a premium. And the math behind sack bunts, the reason I don't like it is because sacrifice bunt increases your chances of scoring a run in that inning, but decreases your chances of a big inning, decreases your overall run expectancy for the inning. And so that's why I've always said, if one run wins the game, absolutely sack bunt. Any other time, I'm not sure I like the trade-off because you want as many runs as possible. But because we're in a situation, in the postseason, every run counts just a little bit more, that I'm like, okay, I'll take a one-run inning here. And I think I know the first time when Edman bunted, they just scored the one run. Okay, the next time they did score 3 runs. They ended up putting up a big inning, which is nice. Absolutely in favor of the second bunt. Gavin Lux against a lefty to get to Tommy Edman against a lefty, like that is night and day. The handedness of the pitcher was huge there. Lux, even though he hit that home run off Peralta last week, overall, Lux is not good against left-handed pitching. So I loved that call. And I liked the Edman sack bunt more than I expected myself to.
Yeah, like I said, it made sense. The only reason I was like, was because Senga was all over the place. But like I said, at the end of the day, if that's your plan to get Ohtani at bat with someone in scoring position, and realistically, that's the only way you want Ohtani batting these days. He's what, 6 for 8 or 6 for 9 now with runners in scoring position, and not that great when there's not runners in scoring position this postseason. But yeah, anytime you can get your best hitter, and even when Lux bunted, it essentially guaranteed Ohtani was going to bat with a runner in scoring position because it takes out, unless a weird double play happens, it takes out the possibility of the double play from Edman, and you get a chance. Edman ended up hitting him in, and Ohtani ends up hitting Edman in, so it all worked out. But and the Mets are a good team for this because they don't have the high velocity arm that some of these other teams have. Like they have good pitchers that have been getting guys out, but you're not seeing 101 every inning.
Not guys who are really hard to bunt off of.
Yeah, exactly. You're not seeing guys 101 every inning like some of these other teams. You're seeing guys that are more pitchers, and that's a easier way to get a bunt down. So we'll see if the Dodgers continue playing that, and if that's something they add to their strategy for this game. And like I said, in the postseason for sure. And when it works, when it doesn't work, you obviously get upset. But when it works, everything looks better when it works.
Absolutely. They scored 4 runs in the 2 innings that they sack bunted. So, yeah, like everything else, every decision a manager makes looks better when the players come through and do their jobs.
Yeah. So we talked about 3 straight shutouts for the Dodgers. If they want a 4th one, it'll come via the bullpen game. What do we think about that? Is that the right move? We'll get into it. Let's make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is getting NFL fans right because you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And FanDuel is there for you whenever you have a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And right now, FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You can bet on whatever you want. You can bet on the Dodgers to win. It doesn't even have to be an NFL bet if that's what you want to do. But FanDuel is there to help you out, and you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you got to do is put $5 down, and then you'll have $200 in bonus bets, which is essentially free money in your eyes, and you can do it all at FanDuel.com. So make sure to go check it out, America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com to check it all out. I want to thank you for being an everydayer if you are one. And if you're not one, you can become one by listening and watching every day. We are here throughout the postseason and into beyond that. But right now for the postseason, we're here probably live after most of these games because, you know, it's fun to talk about the Dodgers when they're doing well in the postseason. And it's maybe a little bit therapeutic to talk about the Dodgers if they don't do well in the postseason. So we're going to be here for you. Who's also here for you is host Pete Fox of the Locked On Dodgers Postcast. He's available on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel live after most Dodger games as well. Locked On Sports Los Angeles and Locked On Sports Today are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. All right, Jeff, anything else from this game they want to talk about before we look ahead a little bit?
Nothing that comes to mind, although I do just talking about the scheduling, just want to throw this out so our listeners know later this week, it's going to be a little bit up in the air just because I am going to it's my kids' fall break later this week. And so I am going on vacation with my family, and turns out where we're going has no cell phone reception and no internet reception. And their website describes it as, due to our remote location, we try to have television reception, but we can't make any promises. So I'm hoping to at least watch the games. Otherwise, I'll be sitting in my car listening on satellite radio. But one way or the other, I'm going to be watching or listening, but I won't be able to talk. And so that'll be starting Wednesday night. So the rest of the week, it'll just be you. And with your job, if there's a clinching scenario, you'll probably be in New York for those games. So we may not be live right as early as we would be otherwise. We'll definitely have episodes for you guys every day, but just stay tuned. And obviously that makes it more important. Maybe this is just a trick to get you to subscribe on YouTube so that you will get notified when we're going live or when a new episode's up, because it won't be quite as by the book reliable as we usually are.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, but we're here for you regardless. All right, so the Dodgers had, like I said earlier, Dave Roberts had mentioned potential bullpen game in Game 2 if Flaherty gave them some length in Game 1. Obviously, he did do that, and now the Dodgers Dave Roberts announced that it'll be a bullpen game in Game 2, Walker Buehler Game 3, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto in Game 4. One, are you fine with the way this plays out in the sense of when to do the bullpen game? And then two, I guess, how are they going to attack the Mets? A little bit different than obviously they had to attack the Padres. And with Alex Vesia down, but the Mets don't have as many big lefties. So, it's a little bit different, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, overall, I am very much in favor of this decision. When you go into it knowing you're going to have to do a bullpen or bullpen-ish game at some point, you had the day off before the series started, and now today, everybody except Daniel Hudson and Ben Casparius got a day off today, and then you have a day off after Game 2. And so all of your high-leverage relievers have at least 2 days of rest right now and getting a day of rest after the game. It's the perfect time to do a bullpen. You can go Michael Kopech for 2 innings if you need to, or Blake Trinan, or any of these guys could throw 2 innings if they need to. And they probably won't need to because you have Landon Knack. I would guess Casparius will be down, but you have Landon Knack, and if the lead is the right size, Brent Honeywell, who can, perfect world, you go for the jugular. Start with Brazier because he's used to that role, and then Michael Kopech, Evan Phillips, obviously playing matchups, what part of the lineup and stuff, and then if you're up 5-0 at some point, then okay, Landon Knack, why don't you see if you can give us 4 innings right now? And if it starts to get close, then you maybe adjust, but basically just you play it by ear and go for it. And then if it gets to be 9-0 again, hey, Brent Honeywell, you're finishing this game. This is why you exist. And so, yeah, I think if once you've kind of resigned yourself to having to do a bullpen game, it couldn't have worked out more perfectly. I guess Flaherty throwing a complete game would have been slightly more perfect. But other than that, like even Daniel Hudson, he threw 20 pitches after a day off, which means he could pitch again tomorrow and then have another day off.
Yeah, it's, if you're going to have the bullpen game, this sets up well. And, obviously winning game one is a big part of that. And I think, I thought coming into a CS where you were only going to have Yamamoto for one game, and it's like, I personally think Landon Ack is good enough to start a game and, give you at least 2 times through a lineup. But if you want to go about it this way, I'm completely fine because the bullpen is the strength. And it's kind of funny how all year we talked about if they could just pitch to their potential, like this is a strength and everything else and blah, blah, blah. And it finally got to that point. And then you had Michael Kopech and, a couple guys that Anthony Bandit came out of nowhere. And now you're like when they announced game 4 bullpen game in the last series, and a lot of people were like, oh, I guess more people were more like, oh, this team has to go to a bullpen game when their season's on the line. But to me, I always was confident in it because bullpen game, you're going to get your best arms going the entire game, and the Dodgers can match it up however they want to, and you're going to get your best reliever at the time against the top of the lineup for the other team. And I think that's probably how they're going to set this one up. There's not a lot of matchups to play, like I said, with the left-handed pitchers and, Vesia being out. They don't have to worry about it. Like you turn Lindor around, but Nimmo and McNeil and whoever, I think those are the only 2 that they have.
They have Jesse Winker.
Jesse Winker, yeah. And they're not like the biggest threats realistically. There's other big threats in that lineup.
So, and Lindor's better right-handed, so you don't want to turn him around. So
yeah, exactly. So I'm completely fine with it. Ideal world, they do take a lead early in the game, and you are able to get Landon Ack in there for a bulk of it, and just to keep the arms as fresh as possible moving forward. Because as much as we love Walker Buehler and what he did last game, despite not having great defense, you don't really know what you're going to get from him. And as good as Yamamoto was in game 5, you don't know what you're going to get from him. And then there's a potential, if you don't sweep, you're doing 3 straight games where you don't know what you're getting out of your starting pitcher. So it sets up well for the Dodgers to do it this way. And if they can just take and do what they did against Padres and the bullpen gets it done, then, the Dodgers should have no problems.
Yeah. And this way, like you said, all 3 games in New York are started by a starting pitcher, and then you have a day off, and then your next bullpen game would be game 6. And there's definitely, like I said, another day off there. So, it's not ideal to have a 7-game series where you need to do bullpen games. It would definitely behoove the Dodgers to just sweep this series, just do the 1 bullpen game and then get rested up. And, but, no guarantees. But for a team that has to do bullpen games, they're set up pretty well because their bullpen is a strength and their other starting pitchers are somewhere between solid and really good.
Yeah. So, on the offensive side, the Dodgers will be going against Sean Manaea, and he's been pretty good overall this season. He was really good in the last series, shutting down the Phillies, and we know Gavin Lux is probably not going to play, especially, compounded with him coming out of the game early. Some guys will move around there. It'll be interesting to see if Freddie Freeman plays. He hasn't played back-to-back days yet in the first round. And, he did have to stay on the bases and run around a little bit in this game. I think winning game 1, not that you get comfortable, but I think the Dodgers can do a lot of different things that you don't feel desperate and you don't feel like we have to play Freddie Freeman. So if Freddie Freeman sits against, a tough lefty in Sean Manaea, I don't think that, not that they have many guys left, like with Lux out and Freddie Freeman now, Kike already in, Rojas out. Like, there's not a lot of guys to go to where you're going to feel like Chris Taylor.
Paul Hess and Chris Taylor. If both Lux and Freeman sit, then Paul Hess and Taylor are both in the game. And Freddie to Chris Taylor is definitely a downgrade. But, against Sean Manaea, it's less of a downgrade because Freddie, while he's historically been good against lefties, this year he hasn't been as good against lefties. And Manaea is a tough lefty, could be the kind of guy who Chris Taylor could accidentally run into one on. He hasn't struck out in his last 1 plate appearance. So, who knows? I'm wondering more defensively if they might do what we've talked about put Mookie at second and Paul Hess in right field rather than Pages in center. I think that's a better defensive lineup to leave Kike, or if Taylor's playing, one of those guys out in center field and the other one at third base, assuming Freddie's sitting, and put Mookie at second and Pages in right. I think that's a better defensive lineup.
Yeah, definitely a lot better defensive lineup. I'll say in pregame, Chris Taylor was taking grounders and turning double plays at second base. So maybe that is something they had in mind, or maybe he's just staying fresh. You never really know with those pregame workouts, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
The early game for the Dodgers, quick turnaround like we have here. Something that the Dodgers haven't really had to worry about, especially the last few years when they're the premier team. They usually have the later game, or if they do have an earlier game, it's later wherever they're playing on the East Coast side of things. So, I don't know. I don't think there's any benefit or no benefit to it. The fact it's not like a 7:00 game the day before and then a 1:00 game the next day. The game was done at 8:15-ish, and the Dodgers they'll have their full rest and they'll come back and they probably might not take batting practice on the field. They might. I don't know how they'll do it in postseason, but. Yeah, I don't think that'll be anything really for the Dodgers to be other than Freddie maybe not playing.
Yeah, it could affect Freddie. I think it sucks more for the fans than anybody else, just because it's harder to go to a game. Kids are in school, I assume. I assume. So it's rough for the fans, but it actually might be good for the Dodgers because the ball carries better at Dodger Stadium during the day. Dodgers have a better lineup, so the Dodgers are more likely to benefit from the extra carrying ball. Shohei Ohtani's single off the wall today is probably a home run in the daytime, things like that. So, we'll see. But all in all, it's a good position to be in for the Dodgers coming in. They were the better team coming in, and now they have a 1-0 lead. I think it would be a really good idea to win this game and just kind of, like we talked about with the Padres and just step on their necks. Just don't give them any hope, beat them badly again, and head to New York with them way up against the wall.
Yeah. The Mets are a fun team, and I wouldn't, they're not a gimmicky team. They've been a really good team this entire second half of the season. They beat two pretty good teams on their way here, but the Dodgers on paper have a better team, and, it would be nice for them to show it and make obviously us feel better, but also just kind of, like I said, it feels as a Dodger fan, it's hard to get excited and everything else. Not hard, but as we've seen from last postseason, you don't want to get too excited for fear of whatever.
One game at a time, baby.
Yeah, irrationally. So one game at a time, the Dodgers will have. I don't know if they'll have the pitching advantage, but it won't be a wash if anything, or that's the worst it would be, I guess.
Yeah,
going with the bullpen game. So. We'll see what happens as always, but this team has proven to us already this October that they're different than teams of past, and we're hoping that trend continues. You got anything else, Jeff?
Will Smith taking Manaea deep.
There you go. Boom. All right, that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you have podcasts and on YouTube. You can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. The Locked On Dodgers postcast with host Pete Fox is available on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel live after most Dodger games. You can check us out on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us with any questions or comments. You can also go beyond the podcast. Go on Locked On Dodgers Insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Get text directly from us. It's a few bucks a month. We keep you updated with everything you need to know about the Dodgers if you're not able to stay updated or on social media throughout the day. So make sure to go check that out. Or you can send us an email if you want to get a hold of us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail, send us a text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car. If you're at home, tell your smart device by podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.